my country, Canada, insofar as it's a good country, has principles that are derived from the UK, and they're very functional. And I read a great book at one point called The Wealth and Poverty of Nations by a guy named Landis, a historian from Harvard, who pointed out that in the Western Hemisphere, if you were a country in the modern world that was settled by France, Portugal, or Spain, you were poor. Whereas if you were a country that was settled by Great Britain with British institutions, you were rich. And that struck me, and still does, as highly probable. And so the radical leftists would say Britain has a dreadful colonial past, that the capitalist enterprise marginalizes the poor and other marginalized groups, obviously, that the time for nationalism is far gone and you have to be something approximating an oppressive fascist to think otherwise. There's no brook whatsoever given for anything that smacks of Christian nationalism, which would be akin, I suppose, to your insistence that the nationalist project has to be embedded within or alongside the Judeo-Christian project. And so, well, those are fundamentally the criticisms. And so you said you're a traditionalist, you have a walloping flag sitting behind you. You've obviously been a staunch advocate of British sovereignty for forever, and despite remarkable odds. So what case can you make, say, particularly to young people, for that serves as a barrier against the assault and accusations of the oh-so-moral radicals, but that also offers people a compelling invitation moving forward? What does reform have to offer?
Well, we believe in family, community, and country. We believe they're the three building blocks that matter to all of us, whatever age we are. And if you deny those, well, you're entitled to deny those. But it's rather important that through the education system, people don't just hear that argument, they hear the positive argument. And I think what progressivism is doing, it's confusing young people. I mean, young men are being told they can't be men. We've got England through to the quarterfinals of the European Championships as I speak. And they're being told, if you go to Germany, please don't drink too much beer. Please don't chant in the stadiums. Please don't sing songs that are funny but might cause offence. Please don't be young lads. I mean, that's effectively what we're telling people through this progressive agenda. And we're telling women, now look, what's the problem? You're in a changing room, you're in a locker room, and there's somebody there with male anatomy, but that person calls themselves a woman. So what's your problem? And then when we send a violent double rapist, to a woman's prison, we're telling women, don't complain, how dare you? That's transphobic. I mean, all this stuff does is totally confuse everyone. And then you can move on from that to the diversity and inclusion agenda, which says that companies, corporate companies, government organizations don't employ people on talent. No. You've got to fill your quotas according to race, ethnicity, sexual preference. And all we're doing here is we're dividing everybody up. We're putting them in pigeonholes. And far from bringing us together, actually all we're doing is causing ever greater division. And actually, and it goes back to your point about Landis, actually, the kind of society that we've evolved over these centuries, it may not be perfect, but you know something? It's a damn sight better than anybody else in the history of mankind has ever come up with. And when you see that nearly 25% of 18 to 24-year-old Islamic men and women born in this country now think jihad is an acceptable principle, you realize that if we're not careful, this progressivism is going to destroy our society as we know it, lead to chaos, and make us poorer. That's the case to put to young people. And you know what's exciting? What's really exciting about this is all through my years of battling for sovereignty and borders, my supporters were over 45, over 50. Now, despite the fact this political party has only been active for a month, I've just seen polling today suggesting that reform and what I stand for is now the second most popular amongst the younger generation in this country. And actually, I believe that within a short space of time, our objectives, our goals, our policies, our thoughts, our feelings, our principles can become the number one amongst young people in this country. And I've pretty much given up with the millennials. They're gone. They're gone. I mean, they talk about work-life balance and, no one wants to get out of bed in the morning and they think the state owes them a living. I'm seeing amongst Gen Z something very, very different. Despite what their school teachers and university lecturers are telling them, I'm seeing great hope among Gen Z for the kind of principles that we believe in. I'm seeing it in France at the moment, where we're heading up for the second round of these French elections. And even though Marine Le Pen's economic policies might be deeply socialist, culturally, she believes in La France. And I fully understand why. I see Trump doing amazingly well with young people in America. And suddenly, even though I'm 60, some young people, for some reason, think I'm cool. So actually, I am seeing great hope. Thank goodness.